The room smelled like antiseptic and quiet endings. Jae-hyun Khan stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his private medical suite, Seoul's skyline glittering beneath him like something untouchable. His reflection stared back, sharp jaw, controlled expression, power woven into every line of his posture. But today, power meant nothing. "Mr. Khan." The doctor's voice was careful. Too careful. Jae-hyun didn't turn. "Say it plainly." A pause. Papers shifted. "Your condition has stabilized, but the damage, it's irreversible." Now he turned. "What exactly are you saying?" The doctor swallowed. "Your chances of conceiving naturally are extremely low, near zero." Silence swallowed the room whole. For a man who owned industries, controlled markets, and commanded respect across continents, this was the one thing he could not negotiate. "Options?" Jae-hyun asked, his voice level, betraying nothing. "You were wise to preserve samples before treatment. Those remain viable. How many?" Another pause. "Several." Jae-hyun nodded once. That was enough. It had to be. "Secure them," he said. "Top-level clearance. No access without my authorization." "Yes, sir." As the doctor left, Jae-hyun turned back to the window. The Khan name wasn't just wealth. It was expectation, pressure, history, generations built on discipline and control, and now his future rested in a lab, in a conference room across the world. Rochelle Carter didn't believe in luck, only preparation. "Run that simulation again," she said, leaning over the conference table, her tone calm but firm. The room obeyed. At 30, Rochelle had built her life with intention. Every achievement, every promotion, every ounce of respect she earned in the corporate engineering world. It had been fought for, calculated, secured. She didn't leave things to chance. Her full, curvy figure was wrapped in a sharply tailored suit, her posture confident, her sleek bob framing a face that rarely revealed more than necessary. She was beautiful, striking even, but it wasn't softness that defined her. It was control. "No," she said, tapping the screen. "Your margin error is too high. If this fails in real-world conditions, we're not losing money. We're losing credibility." One of the senior engineers hesitated. "It's within acceptable range." Rochelle looked at him, steady, unshaken. "I don't do acceptable, fix it." Silence, then compliance. Later, as she packed up, Denise leaned against the doorway, arms crossed with a knowing smile. "You ever think about having a life outside of this place?" Denise asked. "Dating? Fun? Human connection?" Rochelle smirked slightly. "I have fun. Work doesn't count. It does when you're good at it." Denise rolled her eyes. "Girl, you are 30. You've never even had a real relationship." Rochelle paused. Not defensive, just matter of fact. "I've never needed one." Denise raised a brow. "Never wanted one?" Rochelle zipped her bag slowly, then met her gaze. "I don't do things halfway, and I haven't met anyone worth that kind of investment." Denise studied her. "So you're just waiting?" Rochelle shrugged lightly. "I'm selective." What she didn't say out loud, because she never felt the need to explain herself, was that she had never given herself to anyone. Not physically, not emotionally. Not because she couldn't, because she chose not to. Control to Rochelle wasn't just about her career. It was about her body, her choices, her timing, and she had never let anyone take that from her. The clinic was quiet. Too quiet. Rochelle sat on the exam table, scrolling through emails on her phone, one leg crossed over the other. She barely looked up when the nurse entered. "Routine pap smear today?" the nurse asked. "Yep, in and out, hopefully." The nurse smiled. "Shouldn't take long." Everything felt normal. That was the problem. "Just relax," the doctor said moments later, snapping on gloves. Rochelle exhaled, eyes drifting to the ceiling tiles as she mentally organized her afternoon schedule. There was a slight delay. A pause that didn't belong. She frowned faintly. Everything okay? Yes, the doctor said quickly. Too quickly. Just adjusting. Rochelle didn't push. She trusted systems, processes, professionals. A small decision, a life-altering mistake. Minutes later, it was over. All set, the doctor said. Rochelle sat up, easy enough. If you experience any unusual symptoms, let us know. I won't. She dressed, grabbed her bag, already mentally moving on to her next meeting. Behind her, the room felt heavier, colder, like something irreversible had just happened. Outside, Rochelle stepped into the crisp air, completely unaware that her future had just been rewritten. Miles away, in a different world entirely, Jae-hyun Khan finalized a high-stakes deal, unaware that the last piece of his legacy was no longer under his control. And somewhere in the shadows, Yuma smiled. Yuma Park believed revenge was an art form. She sat in the dim light of her private office, fingers wrapped around a glass of untouched wine, eyes fixed on the city below. 3 months ago, she was supposed to be Mrs. Khan. The wedding had been planned, the guest list curated with the most powerful names across Asia and beyond. Then Jae-hyun ended it. No discussion, no compromise. Just a quiet, controlled statement. This will not work. He had seen her temper, her manipulation, her need to control everything, including him. And Jae-hyun Khan answered to no one. Yuma never forgave humiliation. She pulled open the folder on her desk. Inside, clinic records, authorization forms, access codes. She had used her influence carefully, quiet donations, whispered favors, a signature that opened doors. All but one, she murmured. She had destroyed every preserved sample, except the last. That one, she saved for something special. Her assistant's voice crackled softly through the intercom. The procedure has been completed. Yuma smiled slowly. And the recipient? She asked. Rochelle Carter, 30, engineer, single. Perfect, Yuma whispered. A foreigner, black, independent, unknown to the Khan dynasty. Everything Yuma believed would ignite scandal and shame. She leaned back in her chair, satisfied. Let's see how you control this, Jae-hyun. 2 weeks later, Rochelle ignored the fatigue. She blamed deadlines. 3 weeks later, she ignored the nausea. She blamed stress. By week 4, even she couldn't deny something felt off. She sat at her desk, staring at her screen, unable to focus. Denise noticed immediately. You look pale, Denise said, sliding into the chair across from her. I'm fine. You said that yesterday. Rochelle rubbed her temple. I've just been tired. Have you eaten? Yes. Drinking enough water? Yes. Denise tilted her head. You should take a test. Rochelle frowned. A test for what? Denise lowered her voice. Pregnancy. Rochelle blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. That's not possible. Denise shrugged. I'm just saying, rule it out. Rochelle shook her head. Denise, I'm serious. It's not possible. She didn't elaborate, but her tone left no room for interpretation. Denise paused, then nodded. Okay, fair. Still, maybe see a doctor. Rochelle agreed only to end the conversation. But later that night, alone in her quiet condo, she stood in the bathroom staring at a small white box in her hand. 5 minutes felt like an hour. Rochelle paced her bathroom floor, arms crossed tightly, jaw tense. This is stupid, she muttered. She turned, looked, froze. 2 lines. Her mind refused to process it. No, she whispered. She picked it up, checked it again, her hand steady but her pulse racing. No. She grabbed the instructions, read them again, checked the result again. 2 lines. Her heart began to pound. Not fast, but heavy. Measured. Controlled panic. This isn't right. She sat slowly on the edge of the tub, staring at the test. Her thoughts lined up logically, one after another. She had never been intimate with anyone. She had never even come close. There was no margin for error, which meant her eyes widened. The clinic, the appointment, the pause. Something inside her shifted from confusion to cold, precise anger. Rochelle stood up, already reaching for her phone. Tomorrow she would get answers. And somewhere across the world, Jae-hyun Khan had no idea that his life, his legacy, had just taken its first irreversible step toward Rochelle Carter. Rochelle didn't call ahead. She walked straight into the clinic the next morning, heels striking the floor with sharp, controlled purpose. Her posture was calm, but her eyes gave her away. Focused, unyielding. "I need to speak to the doctor who saw me 3 weeks ago," she said at the front desk. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." Something in her tone made the receptionist pause. "It's urgent." Minutes later, Rochelle was escorted back. The same room, the same sterile smell. But this time it didn't feel safe. It felt contaminated. The doctor entered, offering a polite smile that faltered the moment she saw Rochelle's expression. "Miss Carter, how can I—" "I'm pregnant." Silence. The doctor blinked. Well, that's—" Rochelle stepped closer, her voice low, precise. "I am a virgin." The words landed heavy, unavoidable. The doctor's face drained of color. Rochelle watched her carefully. That reaction told her everything. "You're going to explain to me," Rochelle continued, "exactly what happened in this room." The doctor swallowed. "There must be some misunderstanding." "There isn't." Rochelle's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I know my body. I know my choices. And I know this is impossible, unless something was done without my consent." The room tightened. The doctor looked toward the door, then back at Rochelle, panic beginning to creep in. I need to call administration." "Do that," Rochelle said. "And while you're at it, call legal." Jae-hyun Khan didn't like being interrupted, especially not during negotiations. "Reschedule," he said without looking up, signing the final page of a multi-billion-dollar contract. His assistant hesitated. "Sir, this can't wait." Jae-hyun's pen stilled. Slowly, he looked up. "What is it?" "There's been an issue with the fertility clinic." That got his attention. His expression hardened instantly. "What kind of issue?" The assistant placed a tablet in front of him. "Unauthorized access, records altered, and—" She hesitated. "One of your preserved samples has been used." The room went silent. Jae-hyun's gaze turned cold. "Used," he repeated. "Yes, sir." "How?" "We're still investigating." His jaw tightened. "On who?" The assistant inhaled carefully. "A woman in the United States. Name, Rochelle Carter." Jae-hyun leaned back slowly, processing. "Was there consent?" "No, sir." That was all it took. "Get me everything," he said, voice like steel. "Who authorized it? Who accessed the sample? Every name involved." "Yes, sir." "And the woman?" The assistant met his gaze. "She's already contacted the clinic. She knows something is wrong." Jae-hyun's eyes darkened. "Of course she does." Because she hadn't chosen this. Neither had he. Rochelle sat in a private conference room at the clinic, arms crossed, posture straight, every inch of her radiating control. Across from her sat 2 administrators, a legal representative, and the doctor from before. No one was speaking. "Let's try this again," Rochelle said calmly. "Explain. What happened?" The administrator cleared his throat. "Ms. Carter, we are still reviewing—" "No," she interrupted. "You're stalling." Her gaze sharpened. "I walked in here for a routine exam. I left with something done to my body without my knowledge. That's not a review. That's a violation." Silence. Finally, the legal representative spoke. "There was an error." Rochelle let out a quiet breath. Not relief, confirmation. "What kind of error?" The man hesitated. "A sample was introduced during your procedure." Her stomach dropped, but her face didn't show it. What sample? Another pause. Then, genetic material from a private donor. Rochelle's lips pressed into a thin line. Name. I'm not authorized to disclose that at this time. Rochelle stood. Then you are authorized to speak to my attorney. She gathered her bag, her movements controlled, deliberate. And I promise you, by the time this is over, you won't have the option of silence. She turned to leave. His name is Khan. Rochelle stopped. Slowly, she turned back. Khan, she repeated. The room shifted uneasily. The Khan family, the administrator clarified. International and conglomerate. Rochelle stared at him. That Khan? Her mind moved quickly now, piecing it together. Power, wealth, influence. And now, connected to her. Jae-hyun didn't wait. Within hours, his legal team had contained the clinic, secured the records, and begun internal damage control. But one thing couldn't be contained. Rochelle Carter. She's refusing settlement discussions, his head attorney said. Jae-hyun stood by the window in his office, phone pressed to his ear. Of course she is. She wants answers. And she deserves them, Jae-hyun said evenly. There was a pause on the other end. That's not our usual approach. Jae-hyun's expression hardened. This isn't a usual situation. He ended the call and turned, already making a decision. Arrange a meeting, he told his assistant. With her? Yes. She may refuse. Jae-hyun adjusted his vest, calm and absolute. She won't. The room was neutral, private, carefully chosen. Rochelle arrived first. She stood near the window, arms crossed, her presence commanding despite the unfamiliar setting. She wasn't intimidated. She was waiting. The door opened. Jae-hyun Khan walked in, tall, composed, immaculate in a tailored black suit. His presence filled the room without effort. Their eyes met. And in that moment, everything shifted. This wasn't just a situation anymore. It was real. Rochelle spoke first. You're him. Jae-hyun nodded once. And you're Ms. Carter. Her gaze didn't soften. You put a child in me without my consent. Direct. Unflinching. Jae-hyun held her stare. I did not. A beat of silence. But it is my responsibility, he added. Rochelle studied him carefully, measuring, calculating. You expect me to believe you had no control over something like this? She asked. I expect you to believe, he said calmly, that I don't lose control lightly. Something in his tone made her pause, not because she trusted him, but because she believed him. And somehow, that made this even more complicated. They sat across from each other, the air between them tight with unspoken calculations. Jae-hyun didn't waste time. I'll ensure you're taken care of, he said. Financially, medically, legally. You won't have to worry about anything. Rochelle didn't even blink. I already don't. A flicker of something crossed his face. Interest, maybe. This situation is complex, he continued. Discretion would benefit both of us. Discretion? She echoed. Is that what you call this? Her hand rested lightly over her abdomen, almost unconsciously. My body was used without my consent. There's nothing discreet about that. Jae-hyun leaned back slightly, studying her. Then tell me what you want. Rochelle met his gaze directly. Control. A pause. You don't get to decide what happens next, she said. Not with me. Not with this. Jae-hyun nodded once, slow. Understood. But something in his eyes said this wasn't over, not even close. The leak didn't come from Rochelle. It came from inside the clinic. By morning, headlines were spreading like wildfire. Billionaire heir scandal. Unauthorized pregnancy linked to Khan dynasty. Rochelle stared at her phone, jaw tight. Denise burst into her office minutes later. "Tell me this isn't you." Rochelle didn't answer right away. "That's a yes," Denise whispered, eyes wide. "Rochelle, what is going on?" Rochelle exhaled slowly. "I didn't choose this." Denise sat down hard. Okay, we figure it out. You're not alone." That word, alone, lingered. Because despite everything, this wasn't something anyone else could fully understand. Across the world, Jae-hyun read the same headlines, his expression unreadable. "They moved faster than expected," his assistant said. "Find the source," he replied coldly, and shut it down. But he already knew. This wasn't just exposure. It was strategy. Yuma watched the news coverage with quiet satisfaction. Every headline, every whisper, every question about the Khan legacy. She sipped her wine, lips curling into a faint smile. "They're scrambling now," she murmured. Her assistant stood nearby. "There's increased internal investigation within Khan Group." "Of course there is." "Do you think they'll trace it back to you?" Yuma set her glass down, unbothered. "Not before the damage is done." She stood, walking toward the window. "I didn't just want to hurt him," she said softly. "I wanted to unmake him." Her reflection stared back, beautiful, cold, precise. "And now?" her assistant asked. Yuma's smile sharpened. "Now we watch him choose between pride and humiliation." Rochelle wasn't prepared for the attention. Cameras outside her building, questions shouted in passing, strangers forming opinions about her life, her body, her choices. "Ms. Carter, did you plan this? Are you trying to secure a position in the Khan family? Is this a lawsuit for money?" She kept walking, head high, expression neutral. But inside, something was tightening. That night, there was a knock at her door. Rochelle hesitated, then opened it. Jae-hyun stood there, alone. No cameras, no entourage. Just him. "You shouldn't be here," she said immediately. "I know," he replied. "But neither should they." He glanced toward the street where distant flashes of cameras still lingered. Rochelle crossed her arms. "What do you want?" "To fix this." Her eyes narrowed. "You can't." A beat. "Not completely," he admitted. "But I can reduce the damage." "I didn't ask for your help." "No," he said calmly, "but you need it." Silence stretched between them. Rochelle studied him, really studied him this time. Not just the power, not just the name, the man. "You don't like losing control," she said. Jae-hyun met her gaze. "No. Neither do I." Something shifted again. Subtle, but real. "For now," he said, "let me handle the outside." Rochelle hesitated, then reluctantly, "Fine. Not trust, not acceptance, but the first crack in the wall. And for Jae-hyun Khan, that was enough." Jae-hyun Khan did not step into unfamiliar spaces. He commanded rooms, he owned environments, he dictated outcomes. But Rochelle Carter's world? He entered it quietly. Her office floor fell into a hush the moment he arrived. Conversations slowed. Eyes followed. Power recognized power, even when it didn't understand it. Rochelle didn't come out to greet him. "Ms. Carter is in a meeting," her assistant said carefully. "I'll wait." He didn't sit. Minutes later, the conference room doors opened and Rochelle stepped out mid-sentence, stopping the second she saw him. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. "What are you doing here?" she asked, dismissing her team with a glance. "Observing," he replied. "This isn't a showroom." "No," he said, looking around. "It's more efficient than that." She folded her arms. "You don't just show up in my space." "And yet," he said evenly, "here I am. A beat. Then, walk with me." It wasn't a request. Rochelle hesitated, then turned, leading him down the hall. "You're disrupting my work," she said. "I'm learning how you operate." She stopped, turning to face him. Why? Because, he said simply, you're carrying my child. Her jaw tightened. And that gives you access? No, he corrected calmly. It gives me responsibility. Something in his tone caught her off guard. Not control, not ownership, responsibility. It wasn't what she expected, and that unsettled her more than anything else. That evening, Rochelle found herself replaying the conversation, not his words, his tone, measured, controlled, but different. He hadn't tried to overpower her, he hadn't dismissed her, and for a man like him, that mattered. Her phone buzzed. A message. Jae-hyun, you didn't eat lunch. Rochelle frowned. Rochelle, were you monitoring me? A pause. Then, Jae-hyun, I noticed details. She stared at the screen, then shook her head, setting it down. This wasn't normal. None of it was. And yet, she couldn't ignore the shift happening between them. The Khan estate was silent, but heavy with judgment. Jae-hyun stood at the center of the room, facing the elders of his family. This is unacceptable, one of them said sharply. A scandal of this magnitude. It was not my doing, Jae-hyun replied. That doesn't matter, another voice cut in. Perception matters. A pause. And the woman? Jae-hyun's gaze hardened slightly. She has a name. A subtle shift in the room. That is not the issue, the elder said. The issue is lineage, tradition, control. Jae-hyun stepped forward. You're concerned about control? He asked calmly. Then perhaps you should have ensured mine wasn't taken from me. Silence. No one challenged him further, but the message was clear. Rochelle was not what they wanted, and Jae-hyun was not backing down. Rochelle sat alone in her condo, the city lights reflecting softly through the windows. Her hand rested over her stomach again, this time, intentionally. Everything in her life had been structured, planned, chosen. This was none of those things, and yet it was real. Her phone buzzed again. Denise. You okay? Denise's voice came through immediately. Rochelle exhaled. I don't know. You keeping it? Denise asked gently. Silence stretched, then, yes. The words settled into the room, not forced, not uncertain. Chosen. I'm keeping it, Rochelle repeated. Denise smiled through the phone. Then we move forward. Rochelle nodded to herself. Forward, on her terms. The press conference was unexpected, unannounced, and completely controlled. Jae-hyun stood at the podium, cameras flashing relentlessly. For weeks, he began. There has been speculation regarding a private matter. The room stilled. I will clarify it now. Every outlet leaned in. A medical violation occurred involving genetic material under my name. The individual affected, Ms. Rochelle Carter, was not informed, nor did she consent. A ripple moved through the crowd. This situation is being investigated fully. Those responsible will be held accountable. A pause. Then, and I will be taking responsibility for the child. The room erupted. Questions flew. Voices overlapped. But Jae-hyun stepped back, done. Message delivered. Clear. Unshakable. Later that night, Rochelle watched the clip, her expression unreadable. He hadn't hidden. He hadn't denied. He hadn't reduced her to a scandal. He acknowledged her, respected her, and somehow, that changed everything. The first crack in Yuma's plan came quietly. An audit. Not public, not dramatic, just precise. Jae-hyun's internal team moved like shadows, pulling access logs, cross-referencing timestamps, tracing digital footprints that someone thought had been erased. They were careful, his head of security said, but not perfect. Jae-hyun stood behind his desk, hands resting lightly against the surface. Show me. A file slid across the screen. Authorization overrides. temporary credentials, a sequence of actions that didn't belong, and one name buried beneath layers of manipulation. Yuma Park. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened, but his expression didn't change. "I want everything," he said. "Every interaction she had with that clinic, every person she touched." "Yes, sir." As the room cleared, Jae-hyun remained still. "Not surprised, just confirmed." "You chose the wrong move," he murmured under his breath. Yuma didn't expect him to come personally. But when the doors to her office opened and Jae-hyun Khan walked in, she smiled. "Still dramatic," she said smoothly, rising from her chair. Jae-hyun didn't return the expression. "You should have left one thing untouched," he said. Yuma tilted her head. "And what's that?" "My restraint." Silence. Then she laughed softly. "You finally figured it out." He stepped closer, controlled but dangerous. "You violated more than me." "I exposed you," she corrected. "There's a difference." "You think this is exposure?" Her smile sharpened. "A powerful man, brought down by scandal, a child with a woman your family would never accept. I'd say that's quite effective." Jae-hyun's gaze didn't waver. "You chose her carefully." "Of course I did," Yuma said. "Foreign, independent, untouchable by your usual methods." A beat. "I wanted you uncomfortable." Jae-hyun studied her for a long moment, then, "You failed." Her smile faltered, just slightly. "This doesn't weaken me," he continued. "It reveals you." Her expression hardened. "You think this ends well for you?" she asked. "No," he said calmly. "I think it ends." And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving something behind that Yuma hadn't anticipated. Control, slipping. Rochelle wasn't expecting him that night, but when she opened her door and saw Jae-hyun again, it felt different this time. Less intrusion, more intention. "You look tired," he said. She leaned against the doorframe. "You always this observant?" "Straight to it." "Yes." Rochelle nodded slowly, unsurprised. "She seems like the type." Jae-hyun's eyes flicked to hers. "You're not angry?" "I am," she said calmly, "but not at you." That caught him off guard. "I don't think you'd need something like this to control a situation," she added. A quiet beat passed between them. Respect. Unspoken, but real. "You're handling this better than most would," he said. Rochelle gave a faint, humorless smile. "I don't have the luxury of falling apart." His voice softened, just slightly. "You shouldn't have had to handle it at all." That was the first time he sounded human, not powerful, not controlled, just honest. And it landed. The conversation didn't end. It lingered, stretched, shifted. They sat across from each other now, closer than before, but not quite close enough to ignore the tension. "You don't trust easily," Jae-hyun said. Rochelle huffed lightly. "That obvious?" "Yes." She tilted her head. "And you do?" "No." A small pause. Then, unexpectedly, they both almost smiled. It faded quickly, but it was there. "You keep trying to fix things," Rochelle said. "Why?" Jae-hyun didn't answer immediately. Then, "Because this matters." Her gaze sharpened. "The child?" A beat. "Yes," he said. But something in his hesitation didn't go unnoticed. Rochelle studied him. "You're not used to things happening outside your control," she said. "No." And yet, here we are. Another pause. Heavy, real. Then, "You can leave, you know," she said quietly. "Sign papers, send support. Be as involved, or not, as you want." Jae-hyun's gaze locked onto hers. "I'm not leaving." The certainty in his voice settled into the room. Unmovable. And for the first time since all of this began, Rochelle didn't question it. Does the tension between Rochelle and Jae-hyun spark into something romantic? Has Yuma plot satisfied her need for revenge, or has she just begun? What will Jae-hyun family say about his ordeal? What other unexpected surprise is coming at Rochelle's first prenatal appointment? Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you won't miss part 2. Also, comment where you are watching from. We love to hear from you.